Pete Cheyne is one of our founders and CTO. 7 or 8 years ago, he went off into a little cave, which is why he looks like a caveman, to develop this product. And 7 years later, we now have over 50 engineers in 4 different countries and 5 different Scrum teams powering developing this platform. He's from the Shetland Islands. I'll let him explain where that is, but please put your hands together for Pete Cheyne.
Hello. Right, so they've let me out my box to chat a bit of tech for 20 minutes. It's great to be here. As Pete said, I'm from the Shetland Islands. He kind of said, well, you're not really in this market much. You better give some context as to where that is. There's 3 things Shetland is known for. One, its outrageous location. It's the most northern British Isle. It actually used to be Norwegian, but they just gave us away. The second is the weather. The weather is absolutely horrendous. A fact for you is we have 9 inhabited islands and no trees. They literally blew away. And finally, we're really good at exporting vertically challenged horses. We call them ponies. They're no cassowaries, but it's the best we've got. You can look at this list. Technology is not there at all. So for me to geek out, I had to move to England. And that's really where I found some of the guys who we founded the business for. So my background in Newcastle in the UK, I kind of fell into online advertising. So over the years, I got to see a lot of the way that the web worked, how tracking worked, the analytics providers, how it all connected together. So when we started PH, I had a little black book of all the things I wished we'd had at the previous business, and we kind of put that into action. So trends, like what are we seeing? More and more and more, we're seeing an adoption of automation by our clients. There's still way too much manual effort going on in terms of not just our industry, but many industries. So we've probably all had the hell of automated customer service. It's pretty bad in terms of there is no context to it. How is that evolving? It's evolving into chatbots. At least chatbots now can start to understand us. Even when we abuse them over the phone, they don't care. They'll just keep asking questions. As we start to go forward, journalism is pretty bad already, but now we have robots generating more activity. Internet of Things, so smart homes, it's everywhere now. They actually think that by the year of 2020, there'll be 50 billion devices connected to the Internet of Things. It's pretty scary stuff. And just what America needs, we now have drones dropping pizzas in people's gardens. Yet again, more automation is trying to basically stop all of this repetitive human behavior and free up this time to concentrate on growing businesses or improving services. So, how does this have context in our industry? Traditionally, APIs and services have been a pull methodology. So when you want new information, you effectively send in a request and you get a response back. So think of this such as like a ticketing service. If you're competing with 50 million other believers to get a ticket, you're going to be hammering refresh on that ticket website, and each time you don't know if you're going to be still in the queue or you're actually going to be able to buy a ticket. It's a really, really inefficient process. For us, we still have this methodology within our APIs. So imagine that you're trying to get new reporting. You want to see what new sales you've done. You want to know if something has changed. When we've been analyzing our logs, almost 90% of calls that hit our APIs are actually wasted, i.e. it's returning the same data that was returned before. So how can you change this model to make it more efficient? Well, thankfully, there is a way, and we call this notifications. So it's more of a push methodology. So rather than many repeated calls, you simply send one into the service or into the application. You register interest for an event, and then as soon as that event actually happens, you will be given, a ping from this app. Now, that notification can be through many different mediums. It could be email. It could be, a text, SMS. It could be through to a chat app, such as Line or Slack. For us geeks, what we really like is to another API, so a webhook. Once you can start to get a machine talking to a machine, that's when you can truly start to have real automation within a web application. So what's an example in this industry? Well, imagine you are a loyalty publisher. And probably one of your key metrics within your business is to get your customer base to keep buying through your product. And how do you do that? Well, you've got to have an A-grade customer experience. And I know from signing my mum up to one of these at Christmas, it completely messed with her head that she made the transaction and nothing appeared in her account. She got scared and she ran out the room. What we can do with this, imagine that their API registers interest in when a conversion is tracked or when it's updated or when the commission changes. Then as soon as this actually happens within the service, it's pushed into an API within that loyalty partner's application, and suddenly the user's account balance is updated automatically. So this entire process that used to be a very manual thing now is completely machine to machine. On the advertiser side, we're looking at various ways of how we can inform them of activity on their account. So, an admin team might be, 5, 10, 15 people, and not all of them are techies. So an API to API integration is just not going to cut it. But what we could do is deliver contextual notifications through to something that they feel comfortable with. In this example, a publisher has applied to be part of their campaign, and actually within the app, they can choose to approve or reject them. There's a more info button, which would actually take them into our dash so they can view more information on that publisher and make an informed decision. Why I like this, it's abstracting the underlying complexity of an API and delivering it through to a medium that the user is comfortable with. So, the future. What's coming up? I was going to have an incredibly dull example of AI until this morning. It's such a broad field with so many different applications. And what I remembered was about 6 months ago, I saw a talk by a guy called Kevin Warwick. Now, he is like a leading researcher into cybernetics. What the hell is cybernetics? Think man versus machine. It's like the Terminator, but less aggressive. And what he did with his team, he basically took 10,000 brain cells from a rat, put them onto a Petri dish, and this Petri dish was hooked in via an electrode. I'm going to start playing it. Hooked in via an electrode to a little remote-controlled buggy. Now, they drop this into a square path, and see how there's an edge there. Over time, the electrical impulses from these brain cells on top of this Petri dish, they learned that, hey, if I don't hit into the edge, then I can keep going. And now this process carried on for over about a month, over a couple of weeks to a month, and eventually these brain cells on top of this Petri dish had actually learned that if I don't touch the sides, then no one picks me up, no one gets in my way. This is actually artificial intelligence on a different sphere than what we would normally think about it. Computing science tends to be why and how everyone seems to associate AI with, but actually it's applicable to other industries such as biotech. So we probably aren't even aware how much we interact with applications that use artificial intelligence. We have Uber and Tesla and Otto. They're doing a ton with AI to facilitate driverless cars. When I worked out of San Fran, I didn't realize, I kind of thought this was a gimmick. But when I looked in the traffic in San Fran, it's so crazy how many cars are trying to get in at the same time. Now imagine if they were all feeding up to one central repository that had an algorithm to work out, hey, how do I get everyone to their destination in the most efficient way possible, suddenly traffic jams are a thing of the past. Facebook, you've probably tagged your mates, and the next time you go to tag them, somehow their name is magically at the top of the list. They're doing this via AI. They're running various algorithms, facial recognition across all of your friends when you tag them, so they kind of know who they are the next time you want to inform your mates about what they've been up to. Skype and Google, they are facilitating real-time language translations, so people from different countries can actually converse in real time. And Apple, I'm sure we've all trolled Siri many times. Siri is powered through AI. So just before I go into how we're trying to use AI to fuel better partnerships, just a bit on the data that we capture. So if you think the data in our industry, what does it actually represent? Well, a click and a conversion is actually the action of a human. It's someone clicking something, they've been driven this intent to purchase, or at least to find out more about an item, and they've gone through to an advertiser site, and then maybe they've got their credit card out and actually purchased something. So we have 43 billion of those events in our databases, and we've kind of always known that there's bound to be a wealth of potential sat in that data. So how will this look for us? So here's a typical reporting page. What a client has asked us, and well, many clients have asked us, if we've been on your platform for 6, 12, 18 months, you have a bunch of data. Can you use some form of analysis on that data to help predict the future? Well, absolutely, that's a classic use case for AI, and really the more data, the better for us. So how would that look? We'll click the top right button, and suddenly we can use AI. We're actually using neural networks without the rat brains, bit messy, and we're showing to the client what our prediction is for performance. Now, because this is indicative of human behavior, the data itself is kind of susceptible to external factors. Someone may rework their application and drop their tracking links. There could be a brand new product launch that happens and our algorithm doesn't know about it. Initially, we were a little bit disheartened by that, because not all times was our prediction accurate up to 60, 70, 80%. But actually what we realized, and one of the problems that's within the performance space, is if you do a lot of traffic, it's very hard to understand if one partner out of 100,000 is suddenly not performing as well as they could. Conversely, if there's a brand new partner who's become part of your campaigns and they're growing extremely fast, but they're still doing relatively small traffic compared to the big guys, it's very difficult to extract that information. So now that we are predicting data, we can actually start to understand the anomalies in that data. So when a partner, either individually or collectively, has deviated a lot from the norm, maybe they've grown 50% more than we predicted, actually that's something that's interesting. Now, if you hook this in to a push notification, so suddenly you get a ping on your Line app, that's an opportunity you can make the most of. And also, if someone just completely drops off, maybe they've misintegrated, maybe they've gone with one of your competitors, if you get an alert to that as soon as it happens, then maybe you can mitigate the damage. So this whole space, is that this business is doing AI in partner marketing as their core competency today. This whole area is absolutely exploding. Compliance, fraud detection is one that's well talked about. There's situations where, if you think about manual effort, checking if partners are showing correct text around creatives in the financial sector, very manual process to actually go and view that partner, take an image, read the text. All of this could be automated through AI. Another one that's pretty interesting is segmentation of traffic. If you think about this data and what it represents, we actually see all of the touch points that a customer took on the way to transacting. So what drove that final intent to purchase? Who was influential across the path? That whole funnel analysis piece is something that AI could do to automatically segment that traffic. So where are we going to eventually go? Well, before the machines completely take over, we hope, and that's our aim, can we get to a self-optimizing platform? And this is on both the advertiser side and the partner side. It's our ultimate goal, but we're taking baby steps at the minute in terms of partner prediction, but we really see that AI, both with ourselves and in the industry, is going to be an absolute key player going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Do we have any questions for Pete? Yeah.
Hi, Pete. Prasad from The Iconic.
How's it going?
Just wondering, for a company that wants to start building AI capabilities, how should they think about staffing and resources? What kind of people do they need? Just keen to get your thoughts on that.
That's an awesome question. What we found, especially with big data and AI, the thing you need to think about first is what is the question that you're trying to answer? And from that, you can extrapolate out. So for us, we did a lot of validation with clients to try and understand what will be useful for them, rather than us techies just try and build something cool. And from that, we knew through research, hey, these are the teams that we need to put in place to be able to support it. So you absolutely need a data science team. Those guys know some crazy stuff that a normal techie just has no idea about. And also you need to think about the data extraction, because you are doing a lot of traversal across billions and billions of rows of data to get that intelligence. You need to put a lot of thought into the infrastructure.
Any other questions? Yeah. Chris.
Hey, so it's Chris from Casheward.
Hey, mate.
How can you predict the future accurately when you're using cookie-based technology and ad block is so prevalent today?
Well, even though ad block is so prevalent, there's still patterns in the data. So even if, let's say, the tracking is 85% accurate, we can still use the trends of that data to predict going forward. It really also helps with campaigns that are very country-specific, because you have quite cyclical trends in the data because people are going to sleep at night and waking up. And what we found, in different verticals, people behave in different ways. So for travel, people seem to book these at a certain time in the day, as opposed to retail, it tends to be at lunch and at night. So there's a lot of factors we can pull in. Version 2 of what we'll try to do is to actually ask our clients to give us prior knowledge about upcoming events that may affect how conversion is. So that would be telling us about a new product launch, if there's going to be a large offline TV campaign, all of these things that we could take inboard and allow us to have a better prediction.
Any more questions? So, Pete, I've got one. So now, when we started, it was just you. Now there's 50 engineers across different countries, Baltimore and Poland. Is that difficult to manage with such a heavy product dev schedule?
Yeah, it's not been easy. But it kind of it depends on the way that you develop, and the sweet spot we found is to develop features in contained, isolated bundles, something that can work by itself in isolation. It can be tested by itself. It is a product in its own right, and then what you can do is hook that in to a larger API, and effectively that becomes a service.
Do you miss the Shetlands?
Always.
Yeah.
My mum still cuts my hair, by the way. It's beautiful. True story.
Yes, question back there.
Thank you. Very interesting. James Stewart from IAG. Just curious, are you working actively to integrate the Internet of Things and devices in the physical space in with prediction in the online space as well?
Yeah, it's a good question. We've played a bit with if this then that, which effectively has a lot of connectors into more physical devices. We've played with kind of, silly things where if you leave your house, then it will kick off a report that will be delivered to you by the time you've got into the office. A lot of these things are kind of vanity. They're good fun to play with. But again, if we validate these with clients that they would find that useful, it is absolutely something we want to play with. We have the luxury in tech of being completely 100% API focused, so it's very easy for us to interoperate with other services, and absolutely something like that is with Internet of Things.
Any more questions for Pete? Great. Thank you, Pete.
Sweet. Thanks all.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, mate.